Late last week, Senator Bernie Sanders stopped by the Face the Nation studio to talk about his new book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. You talk about the alliance you formed with Joe Biden during the campaign to really shape the Democratic platform and incorporate many of your ideas. You said he wasn't as bold as you would have hoped, but he would have been the most progressive president since FDR if he had acted on that agenda. How do you categorize Joe Biden on that progressive scale now?
Well, I think the American Rescue Plan was, in fact, one of the most significant pieces of legislation for the working class of this country in the modern history of America. Build Back Better would have been transformational. It would have finally addressed the crises that the working class of this country has faced for decades, revolutionized childcare, revolutionized healthcare, dealt boldly with climate change, raised wages. I mean, it would have done a whole lot.
But the votes weren't there.
We got 0 Republican support, and 2 Democrats decided not to support it.
So in terms of how you view the president, do you think he is progressive?
I think he is a much more progressive president than he was a United States senator. In
some of the things you were able to get done and signed into law, President Biden points to them as achievements, but you diminish them a little bit in this book. You point out Medicare won't be permitted to negotiate lower drug prices until 2026. Right. The cap on out-of-pocket prescription drug costs for seniors doesn't kick in until 2025. $35 cap on insulin prices doesn't help those who aren't on Medicare. Are you saying he hasn't delivered?
No. I mean, look, this is the real world that we live in, is that you need 60 votes often in the Senate. The truth is that today, over 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. So the question that I am asking is, why in the richest country in the history of the world, why don't we have a healthcare system that works for all? Why do we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? So we have seen some achievements, but given the scope of the problems and where we should be going, nowhere near enough.
We also have one of the most innovative healthcare systems when it comes to creation of pharmaceutical drugs. You are doing this. No. So when someone hears you lay out the problems with our pharmaceutical industry, as you do in this book, it'd say, but the life-saving vaccines, for example, for COVID, they were created by the United States of America. They were created by the pharmaceutical system with taxpayer help.
Sure. Of course the drug companies produce great drugs. But 1 out of 4 people in America cannot afford the drugs that their doctors prescribe. So, of course, we want the drug companies to do the research and development. Mm-hmm. And by the way, taxpayers of this country spend $45 billion a year through the NIH to help with that research and development, including Moderna and the vaccine. You're
talking about Moderna. Pfizer didn't take that money, but Moderna, you're sharply critical. In fact, you're calling in Moderna's CEO to testify. You're critical of his plan to quadruple the cost of the COVID vaccine. Well, can you stop him from doing that?
Well, here's the story. Taxpayers, the NIH co-authored, worked together to create the vaccine.
Right.
Taxpayers put billions of dollars into the development of the vaccine, guaranteed sales for the vaccine.
As they did with many other companies,
too. All right. And then what happens after the government stockpile of the vaccine expires? These guys say, well, we're going to quadruple the price of the vaccine. And by the way, in the last 2 years, the CEO made $5 billion, and his other guys made billions of dollars. Is that really what should be happening? Truth is, pharmaceutical industry is enormously greedy, charging us outrageously, uncontrollably high prices. We have got to deal with that. As chairman of the relevant committee, I intend to do what I can.
Moderna says it's instituting a patient assistance plan to give the COVID shot to the uninsured and underinsured Americans free of cost. Is that sufficient?
And you know, Margaret,
for you?
Amazing coincidence. That happened the same exact day as we announced that we were inviting them to testify.
Do you think your political heat made that difference?
Well, maybe it was just a wild and crazy coincidence. I don't know. But we also want to take a look at what that patient program is about. We're talking to them about that. But obviously, it's a step in the right direction.
Step in the right direction. How do you lower the cost of prescription drugs in a way that doesn't hurt American innovation? And how do you do it politically when Republicans control the House?
I think we have the basis for bipartisan work to tell the pharmaceutical industry that they really have got to stop ripping off the American people. A number of ways you could do it. The Inflation Reduction Act started by having Medicare negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry. Doesn't kick in for a few years.
Yep.
I think we should expedite that. Number two, of all people, my good friend Donald Trump, all right, who I disagree with on everything, had the idea that maybe Medicare should not pay prices higher than the average of what countries around the rest of the world are paying. That's a good idea, and we want to pursue that as well.
Democrats have this narrow 51-seat majority in the Senate. Both of Pennsylvania's senators are out of office right now dealing with serious health issues. And so their absence complicates any votes. Do you have any idea when, for example, Senator Fetterman will be out of the hospital and well enough to return?
We wish Senator Fetterman has gone through a hell of a year. I mean, with his stroke in the middle of a campaign and dealing with other issues. So I can't answer that.
So President Biden talks about finishing the job and the potential for running for re-election in 2024. You said you won't run if he runs. Do you believe that President Biden will face any primary challenge from the left, from the progressive wing?
I can't speak for other people. I think there's a general consensus right now that President Biden has done not everything we would like. He has done a good job. If he runs, now says that he's going to run, I will support him.
You write, the essence of the Democratic message in recent years has been, we're pretty bad, but Republicans are worse, so vote for us. Is there anyone inspirational in Democratic politics?
Sure. There's some great people who are working night and day to protect working class people.
So who's the next Bernie Sanders? Who is that voice?
I'll let you discover that. What I am extremely proud of is that there are more really strong, young progressives, often people of color, in the House now than probably in any time, certainly in my lifetime. Great people. If you ask me what I'm most proud of, is that so many young people, we won the young vote overwhelmingly. And I think young people are saying, we don't want to tinker around the edges anymore, not on climate change, not on racial issues, not on economic issues. We want transformational change. And if my campaign's played a role in changing that consciousness, I'm very proud of that.
Former Ambassador Nikki Haley is running for president, as you know, and she said there should be a mandatory mental competency test for politicians older than 75. You're 81. Do you take offense at that?
What did she mean? I don't understand what you... No, I think that's absurd. There's a level...
Absurd.
Yeah. We are fighting racism, we're fighting sexism, we're fighting homophobia. I think we should also be fighting ageism. Trust people, look at people, and say, this person's competent, this person's not competent. There are a lot of 40-year-olds out there who ain't particularly competent. Older people, you look at the individual. I don't think you make a blanket statement.
Okay. So when it comes to the current president or the former president and their age range, it doesn't concern you?
Look at what they do, what they believe in. What are they fighting for? What does Donald Trump stand for? Do you believe in that? Well, I certainly don't. What does Joe Biden stand for? What is he doing? Has he accomplished? Look at him in that way, not on age.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll have more with Senator Sanders in 1 minute. We're back with more of our conversation with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to ask you about some issues on foreign policy. CIA Director Bill Burns recently said that the uptick in violence in Israel and Palestinian territories reminds him of the last Intifada, that there could be an explosion of violence. Israel now is the most right-wing government it's had in years. Do you think that democracy is imperiled in Israel right now?
I do. And I am very worried about what Netanyahu is doing and some of his allies in government and what may happen to the Palestinian people. The United States gives billions of dollars in aid to Israel. And I think we've got to put some strings attached to that and say you cannot run a racist government. You cannot turn your back on the two-state solution. You cannot demean the Palestinian people there. You just can't do it and then come to America and ask for money. Have
you talked to the administration about it? They've been very careful in criticism of the Netanyahu government.
Well, I am not careful about it. I'm embarrassed that in Israel you have a government of that nature right now.
And are you going to introduce something?
We may well, yes. If a government is acting in a racist way and they want billions of dollars from the taxpayers of the United States, I think you say, sorry, that's not acceptable. You want our money? Fine, this is what you got to do to get it.
The pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, used to be bipartisan, but these days it's got a super PAC that has spent very heavily in Democratic primaries.
Against progressives.
You said they're doing everything they can to destroy the progressive movement in this country. Do you think the politics around this issue are constraining the White House going into 2024?
The way I look at AIPAC now in terms of their political activities, this is not even just the pro-Israel group. This is a corporate PAC, sometimes getting money from Republicans, sometimes supporting extreme right-wing Republicans. So what really upset me very much is that in many of these primaries, we had great candidates, young people, often people of color, and you had AIPAC and other super PACs spending millions of dollars trying to defeat them. And as you may know, I tried to get the Democratic Party to pass a resolution that in Democratic primaries, super PAC money should not be allowed to be used.
You are proposing a new cabinet-level agency to focus on the future of work and workers. You talk about taxing robots who might replace humans. Isn't the Labor Department supposed to be doing these things?
Well, theoretically, but I don't think we're doing enough. Look, this is a huge issue. There is a revolution taking place now with artificial intelligence and robotics, okay? Millions of workers are going to lose their jobs. Who's making those decisions, Mara? You hear it debated in Congress? I don't. If there is a technology that can increase worker productivity, who benefits from that? Just the guy who owns the company, or does the worker benefit? So if we can reduce the work week, is that a bad thing? It's a good thing. But I don't want to see the people on top simply be the only beneficiaries of this revolution in technology. So
you agree with Bill Gates in taxing robots?
That's one way to do it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
he's a billionaire you do like.
I've talked to Bill on a number of occasions, yes.
Well, I'm interested in that concept and some of the other things you lay out here. Including...
You know, it's not just taxing the robots. It's this whole question of an economic transformation. Are working class people going to benefit from that, or just the billionaire class?
So I'm told we're running out of time. But
I'm just getting warmed up, Margaret. Having fun.
But I have to ask you, you're going on tour to promote this book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. And you're here talking about it. I understand we're not the bad guys you're describing in the book when it comes to media. But tickets for your tour apparently are selling for $95 on Ticketmaster, which is accused of anti-competitive behavior. You know that. Some of your Democrats are criticizing them. Aren't you benefiting yourself from the system that you're trying to dismantle? First
of all, those decisions are made totally by the publisher and the bookseller. I think there's one case where in one place here in Washington, Politics and Prose, an independent bookstore, charging some tickets. Most of them, I think, are $40, $50, and you get a book as well. So if you want to come, you're going to have to pay $40. I'll throw in the book for free. And we're doing a number of free events, but I don't make a nickel out of these things at all.
But you're okay doing business with Ticketmaster?
No, not particularly, but that's, again, I have nothing to do with that. That is, if you wrote a book, it'd probably be the same process.
So you have to operate within the system?
I do. I write a book, a major publisher, et cetera, et cetera.
Senator Sanders, thank you very much for coming in and answering our questions today.
I hope I wasn't too hard on you.
No, and I asked all the questions I wanted. Not necessarily what you wanted, but what I wanted. So thank you very much, Senator Sanders. You heard him. Senator Bernie Sanders just getting warmed up. Our full conversation is available on our website as well as our YouTube channel. We'll be right back.